Well, good morning, Debbie Sharp. Thank you so much for meeting us today. We are just thrilled of not only having NCTC in the Greater Texas Foundation first cohort, but you already are showing such remarkable success. And we thought your model, your case study here would be so important to our cohort 2 members. So tell us about the NCTC story. We've worked together a long
We have,
time.
Emily. Honestly, we were very excited when we were approached about the opportunity to be part of the Greater Texas Foundation grant. This is something we wanted to do. We'd heard about all the great things that Dallas had been doing, but to be real honest, financially, we just did not know how we could make this happen. But because of being part of the Red River Promise and the Greater Texas Foundation and the EMS and this whole system, it's just been amazing because we have been able to take best practices from other colleges and adapt those to work at NCTC. And so when we were asked about participating, we looked at our service area. And of course, we do have rural, but we also have urban. So if you look at NCTC, we service Denton County, Montague County, Cook County, and then also Graham ISD. So we knew that Graham, Cook, and Montague fell within the rural requirements of the grant. And so we made the decision that we were going to service the 14 ISDs that are in that region. But you can imagine, because Denton County, actually 80% of our students are from Denton County. That was a big question that we had, but because of the grant and because of the requirements that you must be rural, it allowed us to then rethink a little bit and say we want to do all for all, but realizing that right now NCTC financially just cannot afford to also include Denton County in this. But what it did allow us to do is to focus on our rural area and develop a model that our hope is that someday we can offer that in Denton County. So you can see that from a perspective of why just Cook, Montague, and Graham is because they are our rural areas that we're serving. And this grant is going to allow us to really develop a effective model that really can help all students. And our hope is that we can move it to Denton County, but some of that will take additional financing and also hopefully some type of tax base in Denton County.
That's fantastic. And I've been real privileged and honored to be a part of this, a small part of this, and attend a lot of the rallies, the presentation to your foundation board members throughout this area. It just seems like there is a lot of spirit and excitement and positive things going on. Whereas, a couple of years ago, enrollment was down throughout the state. And how did this all help with all that? Because I hear it in the grocery store. I talk to people, and how after all of that, do you think this will inspire donors in the future?
Yeah. Well, I definitely do. I know even from a foundation board member perspective, and their engagement has definitely increased. We've been fortunate to share the story from our foundation board perspective. We've also invited them to come to rallies, so they are seeing it and are excited about it. But also the community is excited about it. We attended a rally, I guess it was yesterday, and we had 6 students that spoke, and all 6 of the students at this particular rally said, we're going to NCTC and we're going to be Red River Promise students. And you're hearing more of that because now that we've had one semester and we've actually had students participating, I think we had a little bit of it's too good to be true kind of a story. And so parents especially are asking, how can my student do this? And how you mean we can really attend for 60 hours without additional paying the tuition and fees, and what does that mean and what does that look like? So I think there is a lot of excitement from the community, but also even from my foundation board members. And I think it's taken a little while, to be real honest, for them to sink in is how do we make this sustainable and how do we make this project work? And I know, Emily, you had asked me about how do we anticipate or project the cost of this? And so I was fortunate to talk with others that have done this before, Mitch Andrews and Tyler, and talking with Dallas County, but you can imagine that formula has to change somewhat because of our rural nature. But what we did, and I know they'll share with you some of our financial data and our analysis, but we really looked at the number of schools we were going to serve, what their enrollment had been at NCTC for the last 3 or 4 years, and then we looked at how many of those students actually attended NCTC so that we could get some projections of how many students are we talking about. But we took those students' information and then we looked at how many were Pell eligible, how many had full or partial eligibility. And then we also looked at scholarships that students had gotten in the past to give us a feel of what percentage of those students would be getting funding in addition to the Red River Promise to help us project how much money do we really need to fund this project. And so we then took those numbers and we applied, like we had 21% of those high school students were Pell eligible in 2018. How many were partial, and then how many had no Pell? So we could get a percentage of students that we could then determine what we needed to raise basically to provide the scholarships. And so we also provided for a 25% increase each year as we looked at our projections. And then also we recognize from a tuition and fee perspective, we did include a little bit of increase in that as well. So long story short, it's still daunting, and I'm not gonna say it's not, but I do feel like because of the fact that we have a plan, and I'm excited to say that when we finished this first semester, our projections were pretty close of what we needed. And we will get more data in the spring. And as we get that data, it's going to help us refine that numbers. And our goal is that we can raise an endowment so that the interest earned on that endowment can fund this Red River Promise in these 3 counties. Because we want to be sure that when we make a promise to a kindergartner, that promise can be kept when they graduate. And so that, to me, it's so important that we have that endowment, because that will allow us to actually do that.
We'll talk a little bit also just in the first year, what the percentages were for these promise schools.
Right.
What are their attendance rates now compared to last year, the year before?
And that, to be real honest, was really amazing to us. We actually had a 67% increase in the number of high school graduates from these 14 ISDs that now attend NCTC this fall compared to who attended last fall. So that was huge. And so we're excited that we'll continue to see that growth, because that's going to help us from an enrollment perspective. And as y'all know, the state funding model is changing, and we think that's really going to also help from a funding perspective as well.
Yeah. Anything else that you'd like to share with our next cohorts about this?
From a foundation perspective, I will say that this is pretty daunting for me to look at what we have to raise, but I was very fortunate that our college, as this was happening, we had some federal funds that we received because of lost revenue during COVID. And so our Board of Regents and our executive team recommended that we allocate $4 million of those funds for this Promise program. And what that did was allow us to have some time so that we had that seed money, so that we're anticipating over the next 4 years that we can work to raise that endowment that we need. And so that's, it's fortunate because of the timing, and the NCTC had gotten those. But I do believe that from a perspective of other community colleges, especially with the changing format of the state funding, but that hopefully colleges also can provide some additional resources, so that from a foundation perspective, that gives us time to generate and earn those or raise those funds that are needed to support this Promise program.
Well, there's so many positives and excitement, and I know because of the work that NCTC and the foundation and you and your team have done, have really made this a great launch. And we've already seen such wonderful responses, and we just appreciate you sharing all this and being available to help other ones understand that it's okay to be bold when it comes to the Rural Promise. So thank you so much, Debbie, for your time.
Well, thank you. We're just excited to be part of this program. Thank you.